In case you forgot, Mike Norvell and Florida State's pretty good at the transfer portal, so they wanted to remind us this week. And so we've got a couple players to talk about here at FSU Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you all stopping by. Comments and questions are welcome. Super chats as well. Keep us revved up and running here at the Voice of College Football. We got George, and so that's a destination for you. You should already know about. If you don't, we will certainly talk it up and let you know what's going on at the Renegade Report over the next hour. George, what's going on tonight?
Man, like you named it, revved up, kind of happy about the transfer portal here yesterday we had a couple bits of news pop there. So as we gear up to really get heavy into high school recruiting and we're starting to kind of dive off into that 2025 class, finally a couple little late additions for the spring portal class for Florida State. One of which I'm pretty fired up about, and one which is, somewhat of a surprise, if you will.
George is alluding to, of course, in May and June, tons of camps, official visits, and that's when recruiting really gets serious. Not that it isn't 365 days out of the year. All right, so we'll have some news here and some speculation, of course, in the next several weeks. But let's get to the matters at hand. Cam Riley's got a ton of experience at Auburn playing in the SEC. Let's count them up. 10, 21, 34 games played. Wrapped up 65 tackles 2 years ago, 3.5 tackles for loss. Had another strong season this past year with 31 tackles. And what have you picked up on Cam Riley's addition?
Yeah, look, he isn't one of these guys that showed up and he's been this all-conference guy for 3 or 4 years, but he's a guy, like you mentioned, going into his 5th year here at Florida State, got one final game to play, and really started to come along, started getting a lot better here the last couple of years. Started, I think, like 9 or 10 games for Auburn last year. He's a 6'5", 240-pound athlete. I mean, just a freak athlete. When you hear me say 6'4", 240, 245-pound linebacker, you have a thought in your head of this giant Reuben Foster guy, that lives in the box and wants to knock your head off. That's not what he is. I mean, he's really rangy. He's got like legitimate athletic burst in the open field. He'll immediately, be somebody who can compete at coverage with the best of our linebackers. So kind of a different guy. You may want to look at his film and want him to actually kind of blow up blockers more in a traditional linebacker way against the run. Want him to kind of go in there and just blow a blocker up to do his part as a linebacker. But at 6'5", 240 pounds, he's a specimen out there. He's a physical freak. A lot of people, again, with that kind of outside linebacker thing, they think maybe, okay, well, here's somebody that could play D end a lot, line up at the edge a lot. And that may be something they do here and there. There's tape of him at Auburn lining up on the edge some. But no, I think of him as being able to somebody who can come in and really compete for one of those 2 starting linebackers spots in the 4-2-5. And if anything, just be like a solid depth guy, first one off the bench type deal. I don't think there's anybody that really sticks out. You've got DJ Lundy, who's the one guy who has a ton of experience at Florida State. And then behind him, you've got Sean Murphy you brought in at Alabama. You've got Omar Graham Jr. coming back. You've got Juice Cryer, really just a bunch of young guys. So he's just kind of comes in and brings somebody with age and experience and somebody who really kind of had to battle to get where he is. So I think he's just really the perfect fit for the defense. Like, he's the infinity stone put in there to make this thing complete. I'm really, really, really like him. Really excited to see what he can do. And I think he'll have his best season of his career at Florida State this year and have a ton of opportunity. One of the complaints we have about linebacker at Florida State in Mike Norvell's tenure, Randy Shannon's tenure of the team, is kind of the 6'1", 200 pounds. That's like what he brings in. These sawed-off short linebackers. And we've had some great ones. Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune are really good. But it just seems like they don't go out and get these freak guys, these 6'3", 6'5", 220, 230 plus guys who can, move like the 6'1" guy. And so they end up being a 5-star. Well, this guy, coming out of high school was a high 4-star. As a portal guy, Cam Riley's only a 3-star. But in terms of how you fit him into our defense and the way they're going to be able to use him and just the attributes he has, I think he's going to be a major plus for this defense. And in addition, him and Sean Murphy, I feel like the linebacker room overall with his addition has really been fleshed out, and there's been a level of athleticism and a ceiling brought to it that it just hasn't had in a long time. Along with Blake Nicholson, of course, the blue chip linebacker we brought out of high school last year. Really interesting to see who steps up. But even if there's an injury to or here, there in that position group, I can rest easy there at linebacker, and that's kind of, that was the final checkbox for me. There's still a couple defensive tackles out there. We're looking at the kid Gavin Meyer from Wyoming, and the kid Javier Suggs from a lower program, D2 program somewhere. I'm not sure where we stand on those exactly, what the deal is. Sure, we'll hear something soon, but I'm not that big on that. If they want to bring in a defensive tackle for depth, that'd be great. I've been real vocal about wanting to get one more linebacker. And Cam Riley, to me, as far as the defense, was a very big addition. And we can talk about the other guy who was also on a defense that was more of a surprise here, if you want.
Well, before we do that, you've looked at the tape. I'm looking at the stats. The tape is far more important than the stats most of the time, especially in the defensive side of the ball. You can't rely on the stats, but at linebacker, they're fairly significant numbers here. Two things that are a good sign, if you just take the tackle stats as being what they are, is that he had his best game statistically this past season against Ole Miss, against a good team. The season before, he had his best game of his career if you throw out an FCS appearance against Mercer in which he had 16 tackles. So throw that one out. He had his best game of last season, 2022, against Alabama with 12 tackles. So he showed up in some good games. And his other top tackle numbers are SEC games, Mississippi State and Alabama, the bowl game against Maryland. So he seems to show up at the right time.
Yeah, that's a very good, observation. And his tackling is, again, one of his strongest suits. Like I said, he's not too keen on just getting in there to blow up a blocker and to deliver that first blow. But when he tracks guys down and his speed laterally across the field to make tackles, it really is great. And you hit the nail on the head. If you're going to want to pick up tape to watch and kind of figure out what he's all about, pick up that Ole Miss tape because they line him up on the edge. He's rushing the quarterback here. He's dropping in coverage. There's a lot of good plays to watch in that. And like you said, his best year was his senior year. He played in all 13 games. He had 17 solo, 14 assisted for 31 total tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks. Really a really extremely productive year for a guy, at Auburn and not the greatest of situations. And, really competed in games like that Ole Miss game, which is one of your biggest games of the year for Auburn. So I totally agree. And yeah, linebacker, it's kind of hated on. It's not really, it doesn't get the hype it once got. And especially in these 4-2-5 defenses where, the linebackers are looking more and more like safeties. And, you've only got 2 on the field, but, at the same time, it takes 11. And, I really, really value adding Cam Riley. And I feel like with Randy Shannon and his coaching ability, I've never had any question of him being able to coach guys up. You just wish he got kind of more talent in there and kind of, more wider range of variety of kind of clay to mold and not just all the same guys running around. And I think when you look at our linebacker room going forward, that's there. And it's going to help us going forward, especially if they can do something with these guys this year.
Now we get back to the familiar face coming back to Tallahassee. Omarion Cooper was with the Noles, of course, in 2021 and 2022, had 30 tackles in those 2 combined seasons. He gave Coach Prime and the Colorado deal a whirl in 2023, went out there, played 9 games, had 37 stops last year. But Omarion Cooper, 5 passes defense last year as well, is a good number. He's coming back home.
Yeah, man. Duke Cooper, the prodigal son, returns home. Really kind of a similar story that a lot of guys have had in the Mike Norvell era, where they come in young as true freshmen and bam, like they're the guy to start. But then as you start to hit the portal, as you start bringing in these high school classes, you get passed up. Maybe all of a sudden your depth as a sophomore when you were started as a freshman, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. That's a little bit of what happened with OMARION Cooper, our guy Duke Cooper, as I mentioned. They asked him, I believe, to switch to safety from 22 going into 23 because, of course, we had those issues at depth at safety last year, and we're just loaded at cornerback. You bring in a Fentrell Cypress, Jarius Jones really grows at that nickel position. You got Greedy Vance there, so just a log jam. He didn't want to. He transfers out to Colorado, and he did. He started for them. He's not one of the guys that went out there didn't work out at all or this or that. No, he went out there and started for them. He was one of their best pieces on their defense. He was a really good addition for them. But, Colorado is what it is. I'm not here to bash that whole situation, but just if from a Florida State perspective or somebody who's not on that bandwagon or a part of it, just from afar, that thing is really set up to make the Sanders boys shine, Travis Hunter shine, maybe a handful. There's like either you're in this little group and like it's great and you're making millions of dollars and all these things. But if you're just one of the grunts, if you will, just one of the guys on the roster, it's a lot of rules for thee and not for me. Just as an outsider looking in, maybe I'm wrong. And for a guy to spend time with Mike Norvell and the kind of meritocracy that exists, as long as you do the right things and this and that and how everything's kind of given to you based on what you do on the field, in the classroom, things like that, I could imagine why he would come back. But again, the way he left, there was no big fight. There's no big breakup. Just look, they asked him to change positions. So he left on good terms. He had an opportunity to go start. He wanted to do the best thing for his draft stock. At the end of the day, the grass isn't always greener. He's coming back. Some people have voiced, why take him back? These things, forget that. As long as Mike Norvell and the staff is good with him. If we were talking about a scholarship and that they were offering him a scholarship and he was going to put us in an even bigger number crunch with how deep we are at defensive back, I might, scorn at it or say, that I didn't agree with it. But I don't believe that's the deal. I haven't heard anybody report absolutely on this, but I'm 90% sure he's coming in as a preferred walk-on. They're going to figure out something with NIL. But very curious to see how that all works out. We had a situation where Keziah Holmes came to us in 2022 as a walk-on, didn't play. If he wasn't eligible, or maybe it was just because of his injury, for whatever reason, he missed the deadline. And he was just, for all intents and purposes, on scout team for an entire year. And then, last year we saw him come out and really play. OMARION Cooper's a true senior, so he doesn't have any. This is it. This is his final year. I don't see any way he could claw his way into a starting position. I don't see maybe a backup role, but even then, you're pushing out some pretty promising players. So, really curious to see how that handle that. If he's willing to just be a depth role for his final year, or if they have some kind of plan to let him, be on the practice team for 2024 and come back for 2025. Again, I haven't seen that reported or talked to anybody. It's just kind of looking at it and reading the tea leaves of the situation. Either way, welcome back, Duke Cooper. We, hope nothing but that success. At one time, we thought he was at the future at cornerback. Came in as a true freshman, made some big plays. Picked off DJU, all kind of great quarterbacks that year. And again, like I said, welcome back, Duke.
George, if you're wrong about Deion Sanders in that Colorado situation, that means I'm also wrong about that situation. That also means that a lot of people are wrong about that. So either we need to figure things out better, or Deion's got a PR issue there because the perception is that's what's going on there, because that's what's coming out of his mouth. And that's what is being observed by everyone, is that it's not being run like a healthy college football program where everybody's valued. There's 3 or 4 guys, in the inner circle, and everybody else just shows up and gets told what to do. And so maybe OMARION Cooper was responding to that type of treatment, and he enjoyed the way things were at Florida State, even though he was a starter in Boulder. So you don't see that very often, where somebody leaves, they get a starting job, they return. And for anybody that's upset about that, have you ever worked anywhere where somebody left and then they were on good terms? Everything was good. They were a good worker. They did their job. They just thought another opportunity was out there that they would like. They didn't like it. Things changed. They came back. Happens all the time, folks. It's not a big deal.
And that person swallowing their pride to come walk back through the door, like, that's punishment enough. There's no need to pile on. Like, that's, So hats off to him to realize, if this is really the best place for him and where God wants him to be, that he could realize that and come back. Maybe it's just as simple as he wanted to win again, and he hated losing so bad all those weeks.
Very well could be. We got 90 plus watching, most of you on YouTube. That's a good thing. If you're watching us on X, that's great as well. That's one of the reasons why we throw it out there, is just to bring in a different and a more diverse audience. So certainly if you join us on X, you have found us, but join us on YouTube. You can make your comments and questions there in the chat. You can mix it up with the folks in the chat. Falconer TRX, thank you so much for the super sticker. Falconer TRX showing up an hour early here. Checking in on the rivals. I see that. So thank you for that. And yes, George, I just read them here. Falconer TRX with checking in on Free Shoes U.
Now keep them coming. Keep putting money in the bank, man. I appreciate it.
That
I love free shoes.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with free shoes.
I've
never gotten any free shoes that I can remember.
What's funny is I love that's the troll that's used against Florida State when we haven't been in a fraction of any. We haven't had a guy even come close to the fraction of trouble that any of our rivals have come in. Like, we've never had a murder. Like, we've never had a teammate murder each other. We've never had any of the stuff, but we're the criminals. But at the end of the day, who doesn't love free stuff? So I'm gonna take it all day.
That was
most we got is some crab legs. Well, yeah, and that guy is probably going to one day be the president of Florida State or a governor. Like, Derek Brooks is just like salt of the earth type of guy. So, like, it's dope. I love it. It's cool.
James, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just traveling. I'm in Naples, Florida right now. Lacrosse state championship. Well, Final Four. We got a tough road to hoe, but we play tomorrow at noon. It's going to be hot, really hot.
Ooh. Is that for Mandarin or AAU or what?
Both.
Oh,
I'm orange and green in the fall for high school, and then I'm blue and orange in the spring. It's the worst possible color combinations that I could come up with. So that's why I have on a white shirt. I have all Polos gear. And I refuse to, like, I'll wear a Mandarin shirt every now and then on your show, Mark, when I'm coming from practice, but I refuse to wear blue and orange any longer than I have to wear it.
That makes you appreciate the garnet and gold every time you put it on.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Well, James, we just got done talking about OMARION Cooper and Cam Riley. Don't know if you had a chance to look at the tape on Riley coming in from Auburn, but you're obviously familiar with OMARION Cooper. One quick question before you get rolling on any analysis here. Do you recall any teammates? Of course, it was a much different day and age in terms of transfer portal and guys moving around. Did you ever have a teammate that left and came back?
Yeah, it didn't work like that. But I'll tell a funny story though. Funny story, and actually, really, I guess off season is great. What makes me different is I can give real life Seminole history. So he didn't leave and come back, but I always tell people they're so afraid of the transfer portal because it's never been reported in the manner it is, but it's always been there. And I told the story about when I put it in our group chat about when they shaved our heads as freshmen. The guy Thomas Clayton I was talking about, he ended up he actually technically entered the transfer portal, ended up playing at Kansas State. Went on 5 official visits after he left Florida State in the spring. Went to Michigan, went to a lot of the big schools in at Kansas State. But that same class, Buster Davis, who ended up being I think he was a 4th round pick to the Arizona Cardinals, really good linebacker. Buster was promised some things and it didn't work out as fast as he wanted it to work out. So Buster left in the middle of fall camp, like went home to Daytona, like didn't tell anybody, cleaned out. Like his roommate was like, Buster's not here. He is gone. And Buster was talking about going to Nebraska. And Coach Bowden said, you could go wherever you want to go, but I own you for 2 years with this LOI. And I'm not releasing you from this LOI. So that means you have to walk on. So Buster would have had to pay out-of-state tuition. he would have to pay for whatever. So Buster came back, and I'll tell you this, and I hope he hears this one day or sees it. I don't really talk to Buster as much as I talk to my other teammates. Buster is the truest Seminole that I've ever met in my life. I don't know anybody who would have done what he did. We had 2 weeks left of fall camp. This man did not do anything football related. He had to finish and make up for every practice that he missed during that week off. And we had it was real 2 days. It wasn't no 2-1-2. It was 2 practices. So he had to do 14 straight practices of 24 periods plus A, B, C, D. So basically 30 periods, 30 times 5. If you want to do the math, of just straight punishments. Board, like pushing the board 100 yards and back, rolls, bear crawls, just like when we're taking a break, he's working. And he did that for 2 weeks and didn't see the field. But he ended up being a hell of a football player, man. It was funny because like he was one of the top linebackers. But that's the closest that I've seen. I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand some of this stuff. Like I could never go to Miami and then come to Florida State. I could never go to Florida and then go to Florida State or the reverse of those things. But rivalries don't have the same impact or meaning in today's game as they had when I came up. Kids are into something different. They're all friendly. They're very friendly, which is, I guess, people say the youth are worse, but that's a good sign, I guess, that they're a little more friendly than we were back in my day. But yeah, that would be the closest thing. But Duke knows the system. I think he's just okay with playing, like just being here. I think I don't want to say anything too much, because Dion is Dion at this point. People know what Dion is going to put you on either side of the fence. You're either going to really like him and defend everything, or you just don't like him. So, and I just think Duke it didn't turn out the way that he thought it was going to turn out. So him as well as DJ Lundy came back. But the Cam kid from Auburn, 6'5", 240 pounds, if I remember correctly, is pretty good when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. But in pass coverage, what he does a really, really good job of is using his height and his length. There's a play that I saw when they played, I believe it was Alabama. Or no, it might have been Georgia. I forgot who it was. They were playing somebody, but they're trying to throw the ball over him. But he's able to make you have to adjust your throws. Some people are just freaks like that. Like if you don't play that, he's frustrated because every week you're not going to see a guy like him. And if he comes in, but he still has to learn the defense. And I hope he's got 1 year. Hopefully they simplify it. Don't ask him to do anything too much. Ask him to get pressure on the quarterback. Ask him to do what he needs to do in pass coverage. But I know we wanted him. I really wish he would have made the better decision in January as opposed to going to NC State first. But, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I will say this. Mike Norvell retweets or quote tweets every commitment that we have of a scholarship player. That's something that I've noticed. And I haven't seen Mike Norvell. I haven't been on it, but I've been on the bus. I've seen a lot of stuff. But I haven't seen a Mike Norvell quote tweet or retweet of any of the guys that we have that have committed back to Florida State, which means Battles End is doing their job. Because I know these guys ain't coming here to pay for a Florida State education, not out of state tuition. So there's some things that are being done. So cool.
FSU Live here every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. We typically have Chris Frazier, Spear Addicts, wherever Chris is. Want to say hi to Chris. Get on over to Spear Addicts. Check out his work. We got George here from the Renegade Report. What's going on at the Renegade Report these days, George?
Man, everything. We are super, super busy over there. We just launched the new show that we told you guys about, the Renegade Roast, on Mondays at 9 Eastern. Then we had our show Tuesday. We had our guy Vince from Garnet and Old on with us Tuesday. We've got our show on Friday, as always. Not sure who we're going to have on. Don't want to spoil that one yet. But Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. And now a new show on Mondays. So just trying to stay busy and keep it up to date over there at the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. So we appreciate everybody that comes through and subscribes and spend time with us.
Den Media Group, James, what is the good word there?
We're gonna have a late night show tonight. Because I've been traveling. Just same old, trying to get to 6,000 subs. We're about 300 away. Once we get to 6,000 subs, we'll give away $500 to a listener at Big Games BS. Then $100 to a member. In the amount of likes. Then try to continue to grow. The goal is to get to 10,000 before football season. Whether you're a Florida State fan or not, once we get to 10,000, we will give away a pair of season tickets to whatever your favorite program is, and then we'll give away $1,000 on that show, that episode. But outside of that, we're just growing. We're going to be doing. I'm going to start a new segment for the ladies. Trying to keep it sexy over this summer and educate the female viewer. We're going to call it. It's called mansplaining. So we're going to. It's not just for the ladies, because what I found is a lot of dudes pretend to know about football, but they're too afraid to ask. So you can watch too, guys. But we're going to talk to the ladies on this, and you'll actually be able to learn some football on a simplified level, so you can have an intelligent conversation. It stemmed from this thing that went viral, I believe, back in a couple weeks ago, where this guy was talking about. He's going when he sees a 4 or 5-star quarterback with 7-on-7, and he talks about, can you diagnose the 3-by-1 with the over front? He uses a lot of verbiage salad, which you would only know if he was coaching you specifically. And we had a nice little dialogue, and I told him, as smart as you're sounding, you played at Colorado in 2003. How do you feel getting your ass whooped by a team whose complication of the offense was 44? And if we wanted to get sexy, we wanted to do play action past 44. A lot of people try to be smarter than what's necessary, because at the end of the day, it's cats. But those are the things that we got going on in that as I travel the world this summer and try to continue to work, because I actually like my job. So
I'm going to hit you with this one, James. This just hit me with the last comment that you just made. It goes back to the Jimmies and Joes. Bobby Bowden knew that as well as anyone. Was there any time on the field in your 4 years that you either thought, we're better than them, and it's not about us outplaying or being outplayed, out-hustled, but they got a scheme that's whether that's from your perspective on the offensive side, looking at their defense, or from what you were hearing on the sideline about the other side of the football, or that you felt, man, this team is really good, whether it was a Miami team or one of the best teams that you played, this team is really good. But I think that we've got a better scheme. And was there ever a time that you thought the game planning, the preparation, the scheme, the play calling, all of that did make a difference?
Yeah, when we played Maryland in 04. There's a couple games. Again, there are games where coaching does come into play, and there are great coaches. I still think they keep their game plan simple, but they do what they do very well, and they're able to scheme it up. Maryland 04 with Sean Merriman, they ran a 3-4 with Merriman basically being a stand-up in rush in. That wasn't as common then. I mean, as it is now. Like everybody ran a 4-3, and if they wanted to get kind of feisty, they ran a 4-4. Wake Forest ran a 3-3 stack. Wake Forest, Virginia ran 3-3 stacks, and typically the teams that did that, they just didn't have really good defensive ends. So it's difficult. It wasn't difficult unless you faced a good team. Miami is, I ain't gonna lie, man. Those Miami teams were real simple. Like the early 2000s. To be honest, that was the best collection of talent that wasted more than that. They should have won from 2000 to, I will even go as far as to say 05. There should have been 3 national championships in that team. Going even 99. I think 99. I always tell people, like, they love to argue about, was it 99? No, excuse me. 2000 was the year they lost. They messed it up on themselves. If they lost to Washington, I believe, if I'm correct. But they still were a really good team. 01 Miami, extremely good team. 02 Miami, crazy. But like, it was a lot of talent that they had. And I remember coming out there looking at their guys and just being like, hey, I don't look like that. Like, that guy who is this mutant I'm going up against, man? But, you know, and even when I think about guys that I got a chance to meet later on in life, like Calais Campbell and some of the freaks that they had, it was crazy. But, you know, Miami was probably the only team that I believe was just had more cats than us. And I do think if we had a better offensive coordinator, we would have been better off. And I don't even mean just from a play calling perspective, just from a knowledge. Like that 0-2 game, we was whipping their ass. And you just, by running the ball, Greg Jones had 200 yards in the first half. So I would just think, let's keep running the ball. Take your ball and go home. You don't prove a point against Miami. And he wanted to start throwing it, and Chris was spraying that ball all over the place, man. And shit. My bad, Mark. But shoot, like we just slipped away from this. But yeah, so those are some of the games that, you know, I think we were just a team that had better cast than us, and then also games where, you know, we were probably out, not might have been, we were out coached that game.
Falconer TRX, UFSU fans, who is this guy? This guy's showing up an hour early. He's a Miami guy that supports us on the Miami show. Decided to show up and check in on the Rivals today, and he's hitting us up with a lot of good super chats here. So Falconer, thank you so much for that. FSU fans are sad. 63 watching, 0 likes is bad. Now it's 77 watching on YouTube at least, and we've got about 117 watching total, and we're up to 23 likes. So Falconer maybe woke a few people up. Thank you for that, Falconer. And coming back with this one, in Naples, Florida, and brother wrestled at Bowles.
That's the school I coached lacrosse at. That's why I'm down here in Naples. And Naples is beautiful, man. Right now it's hot. Like the sun is there. Like it's nowhere to go. It's not a cloud in the sky, I don't think. But we were out there on that turf field at their community park. 98 feels like temperature, probably 105, 110 on that field. Not comfortable.
I think a little bit.
George, you caught something this week. So we've got our DM between George and James and Chris and myself, and George caught a segment that we posted here on the Florida State channel that came via the Miami channel. And I don't remember how the conversation got started, but with Cam Underwood and myself, join us here in an hour with Cam on the Miami channel, that Cam was making a statement and an argument that the Florida State success and the approach is not sustainable. It's based way too much on the transfer portal. Well, I have never stated that here. I've asked that question because it's run through my mind. Of course, Mike Norvell, I believe, has had the most impressive run in the transfer portal, especially the one particular cycle or off season, but really 2 to 3 years. Michigan's been very effective, but not brought in the star power that Mike Norvell has. So I've offered it up here, not as a statement to say this is not sustainable. It's he can't continue this approach, but to say, are you guys comfortable with this? Have you looked at the recruiting rankings versus the transfer portal? And are you guys comfortable with that? I was always satisfied with the answer. And Cam went off last Wednesday about it for whatever reason. And George got a hold of that. So, George, I'll let you respond.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw some of the graphics that I made or some of the talk going around, but it really was a beautiful thing. It just provided an opportunity with me because I kind of, get on my soapbox, and it's kind of aggravating kind of how people treat the portal and act, like this, and especially Miami fans given their proclivities. And, currently, if you looked at the counter, I believe we retook the lead by signing, Cam Riley and OMARION Cooper. But at the point he made that video, Miami had 42 transfers in Cristobal's tenure in Miami. And in that same time, Florida State had 41. So he got up there and did this whole rant about how Florida State is built on mercenaries and it's unsustainable, and it's unlike Miami and the development they've done and how they've done this and that out of high school. And it really is just like the sad, like, I don't know, like, it's a troll. It's like almost a troll. And so when I get to talking and I talk to people about the amount of talent Mike Norvell's bringing in, and when you look at Miami and what they have and how I don't understand about the talent, people say that I'm making it up. So really just that kind of 5-minute clip, it was beautiful, you know, because he was in the examples he brought up of the culture that's unsustainable. Jordan Travis, a guy that was here for 4 years, did all these great things for the university. Trey Benson, he was like claiming him for Mario Cristobal, and this another guy here 2 years went early. It just doesn't hold up. There just wasn't anything in there that he actually said that was true. It was just kind of based on emotion. And when you look at the facts, it blows your mind that somebody from Miami would say that, because they've literally taken the same exact number of transfers just without the success whatsoever. And the guys that Florida State takes, you can count on one hand the ones that were these 1-year mercenaries. Most of them 2, 3, some even 4 years that stay with the program. So it's just, I'm not sure what high school development he was talking about that's went on at Miami, that could, you know, they got that 22 class that came in. Nobody really in the country had a good one. So you can like wipe that one off the map. So we're in year 3. It's just like, where is this? Who are these high school guys that are getting developed at Miami versus Florida State? It's kind of that nature of it. You can have an existential conversation about whether, like, you should have this many. Should it be 60% high school and 40% portal? But that was really just propaganda. Like, I'm not sure if James caught it, or we could even play some of it. But yeah, there's a conversation to be had. But his kind of framing of what Miami's doing versus what Florida State's doing, it just couldn't be farther from the truth. And what's not addressed in there is the exits. Florida State, they just don't have the exits. They just keep adding more players and improving the roster little by little. And when you want to talk about high school recruiting, for example, it's a steady trend up, all the way up into the top 10 now. So it's like, how could they possibly do it? They built a house of cards for a 1-year team in 2023. They went 13-1. Yeah, but they did that with 40% blue chip ratio and all these shitty high school classes, excuse my language, that you talked about. So now that they're top 10 and brought in 27 blue chips and all these things, now the house of cards is going to collapse. And I don't know. And when you want to talk about high school development, again, half of Florida State's team, Shaheem Brown, Joshua Farmer, Patrick Payton, DJ Lundy, I could go down the list, Azaria Thomas. All these, half the starters on the team are literally high school guys in their 3rd, 4th year. And then you have transfers like Fentrell Cypress coming back year 2. On down the line, guys on the offensive line that have been here 2 or 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just one of those things. It was gold for me because it's proof positive. It all starts with Gabby Urethra at 247, and it sponges down to people like that. I don't know if it was an emotional thing or he was just aggravated off the timeline, but it was just one of those things. I wouldn't have addressed it so firmly if it had been posted on the Miami channel, but since it posted up on the FSU channel, I just had to. And we could get into just why it is sustainable and exactly what Mike Norvell is doing. We could go on for that for another hour and a half.
It's very interesting. It's a strategy that's being used, and it's actually good when you can get your base to actually just lock into it and block out the noise. The problem is it only works when you have such a small segment of the population that believes anything that you state. And what I mean by that is, Gabby, I want to say his name properly on your channel. Is it Urethra? No, I know how I say it. Gabby U. We'll just go with Gabby U. I won't troll him. Wrote an article, and this was Miami's entire thought process going into the fall. Florida State relies entirely too heavily on the transfer portal. It's unsustainable. The reason why you want to come to the U is because we play freshmen. We play people. They even wrote an article in January where they boasted about how, I believe it was 2,500 snaps or something like that, were based on freshmen playing. And then reality set. We have to win right away. We need a quarterback. We need a running back. We need offensive linemen. We need defensive linemen. We need linebackers. We need corners. We need safeties out of the transfer portal, and how Miami is going to get everybody in the transfer portal. And everybody who went into the portal, Miami, even in the second wave, when you look at Simeon Barrow, you look at both D tackles from Michigan State. You're talking about the young man who's a D2 guy. You're talking about people going out, even to where it was Cam Ward, and then Cam Ward decided that he wanted to leave and try to entertain the NFL draft. Then Cam Ward's not good. We're going to get Reese's Peanut Butter Puff or whatever the heck his name is from a Division I AA school. We're going to bring him in, and he's going to be the next best quarterback in the state. And then, Cam Ward's back. Oh, my God, no. Now what happens is when you keep saying a lot of things that North remembers, some of us graduated college in 3 years. Some of it, and part of it comes down to this. And this isn't every Miami fan. Miami is one of the greatest academic institutions you can get to in the state, hands down. My best friend graduated from pre-med from Miami. She is incredibly smart. But for most of our lives, I don't know if George's a little younger. Mark's a little older than me, but I know Mark's, your guys did this. For all of our life and education, we were broken up into three categories. You had the gifted students or the honor students. So they went to class with gifted and honor students. So you talked to these students. These were your peers in which you came up with, smart people. But you got a chance to intermingle at lunch and stuff with the regular students. So there's nothing wrong with being a regular student. That's the mass. But then what we called it when I was coming up was called SLD, slow learning disability, or slow learning education. And these are the guys that need a little bit of extra help. They were in one class all day, and they yelled a lot. They talked with a lot of passion. They wore helmets. Teachers, you had to get extra teachers and extra assistants to these people because they can be deterrents to the normal kids, the regular education kids, and then the honors kids. So you didn't want them there. But the problem is once we became adults and they gave us social media, we went from our whole life being broken into these three categories in which we learn to now we are all in the same classroom. And unfortunately, the loud and the ones who make absolutely no sense and have no argument are now in the same class as the intellects and the normal people. And they're getting the attention. So the normal kids want to get the same attention as the kids who would tell you that they like the red crowns because the red crowns taste the best. And when I hear these things, especially from Cam, who I do believe is intelligent, but I know he's trolling. You can't say that and do what you say we're bad at, and it's unsustainable because you do it the right way. When you haven't won a game, you have no proof. I would argue that, in fact, your high school kids that came into last season, again, article written by the University of Miami beat, not James Coleman saying this. They brought an article that took all of the players who had pre-draft grades. There were, and the article was University of Miami projects to have 5 first-round picks. Leonard Taylor was one. Cam Kitchens was one. 2 of your offensive linemen were one. And I forget who the other guy. I think he didn't even play. Nobody got drafted in the first round. In fact, you almost went to where your top guy didn't go. I'd argue that that's the opposite of development. The kid didn't just not become a 5-star all of a sudden. Your scheme him up. And Florida State did not go all in for the 2023 class. What happened was I even made this observation. Mike Norvell's biggest recruiting tool for the class of 2023 is to keep the guys who are draft eligible for 2022 to come back. And that's what he did. He kept Jay Trabb back. He was able to keep I can't even think of my running backs name. Trey Benson back. He was able to keep Johnny Wilson back. He was able to keep Jared Verse back. All of these guys who could have gone. That's why Florida State's 2023 was so imperative and so good and shocked. And you know what their fan base said going into 2023? We suck. We're going to win 8 games. It's a constant thing. And eventually, you know what? You're going to be right. If just like my Christian friends and everybody who says Jesus is coming, you know what? The world is going to end one day. And if you say it every day and you're right once, that doesn't mean you're this prophet. It just means you said the same thing every day. It's going to rain outside. If I say it's going to rain outside every day, you know what? In Florida, the odds are high that it's going to eventually rain. The problem is this. If you look at what Mike Norvell does in the transfer portal and how they utilize it the exact same way as you would utilize high school recruiting. If I bring in a 5-star prospect, and I actually had this conversation with some Nole friends off camera, and I had to get them on my side. If I bring in a 5-star prospect, what do I want? What's the first year they're going to do? They say, oh, you know what? Be a contributor, play special teams, get a couple catches, do your thing. All right, cool. Second year, what do we want? We want them to contribute more, possibly become a starter, right? Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's what we want from a second-year player. We know his name. Third year, what do we want? We want him to start. Okay. How is that any different than what we just got from out of Johnny Wilson? We don't need that person to contribute and do that first year. So the first year is a wash. We got 2 years out of Johnny Wilson. That is not a mercenary. We got 2 years out of Trey Benson. That is not a mercenary. We got, like, matter of fact, what's funny about the Trey Benson thing, Trey Benson was so good and so developed at Mario that Mario didn't bring him down to Miami but brought other people in. I pray that all of these guys are upstanding citizens, because I would never do dirt with any Miami beat writer or any Miami fan, because they don't remember what they said. Like they'll say one thing and then they'll completely forget it in the same sentence. It's ask a 9, ask a 10, ask 11, ask a 12, as Stephen A. Smith would say. But I will say what isn't sustainable is what TCU did. You can't go bring in a bunch of one-year guys and have them merge and have them gel. And the more people, and this is what I think is going to happen to Miami, is they're going to find this out. You can't bring in that many people and then Deion found this out the hard way, and then expect them to all merge, because it takes synergy. So you have to you need that extra year. But they're and I'll leave you with this. The crazy part is everybody can tell us how wrong they are as opposed to just be happy. We're happy. The person that has the money is not the person starting to fight in the club. It's the person who has nothing. Like, we're over here enjoying our 13-1 season. And, you know, we hear Georgia every now and then. Teams that can't beat us tell us 63-3. We're not bothering nobody, but they're bothering us. And matter of fact, they'll tell us that we rent-free after they try to troll us and we respond. But that's what I tell, stop responding to people that you didn't go, that you know you wouldn't be in the same class with. Don't respond to people that don't have they don't have an argument, and the only thing that they can do is try to rile your blood up, because they know at the end of the day, they're afraid. Because if they were truly just happy with what they have, the conversation wouldn't be what we have sustainable at Florida State. The conversation would be how they're back and how they're going to win. Because I can tell you this right here. I don't care if they win a game. I don't care if it's sustainable what Mario does. I just want to beat Mario consistently. That's it. I can respect that they got better with Cam. Cam Ward might be better than TVD. Cam Ward gives me no fear. Like, I don't care if you bring everybody in high school. But I know this. When they're sleeping, when they're laying in bed at night and they're thinking about this, I know for a fact them 16 3-stars ain't going to do a damn thing this year. So have all the high school recruiting you want. You sign 30 kids, you should have a top 5 class. That's the numbers. That's the way the game works. It's a numbers game. But I tell you this, I like our class. And I don't want, if Mike Norvell signs 16 3-stars when there's an opportunity to go get me some guys with 2 to 3 years, because the game is about winning games now. Last time I checked, when I walk into Doak Campbell Stadium, there is no banner for the #1 recruiting class in the nation. There's ACC championships and national championships. And when you go to that Renegade Stadium, and you see Dolphin banners, and you haven't seen anything in this century from the University of Miami. But when you go there and you check it out, they are talking about their 5 rings from the past. They are not talking about all the recruiting classes in which they have. And, you know, but to me, if you like it, I love it. Enjoy yourself. All I care about is whipping you for the 4th straight year, which I believe we're going to do. And nobody's going to bet me, because every time I talk that talk, everybody starts having excuses about where their money at. My checking and my savings and the way it's tied up and all this other stuff. But hey, that's all I got to say. Sorry about that. I was a little long, but it ramped me up.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
That's why you're here. Let's run off some of these super chats. Falcon are coming back with this one from the 305, of course. Coach is correct about FSU UM games. I don't know what that means, but anyway, General. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Jen's amazing. She's on with George on the Renegade Report. Imagine being a loser for 20 years and then going to spend money on a rival pod just to be wrong. Thanks, Falconer. This was too easy. Oh, we got things stirring up a little bit. Here we go. All right.
Yeah, we'll cut them no slack. That's for sure. So, and you guys got to check out again on Mondays. That's all we do is just have a little fun and roast the different fan bases. Y'all can come hang out with us on Mondays.
Falconer coming back. FSU got screwed last year in playoff truth.
Appreciate it. Those are facts.
And finally, we've got Coleman Knows Football stuff. Should be every week.
I try to be here.
James is here every week, Falconer. Maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 a year, but he's way over 90%. Speaking of rankings and ratings, everyone, I'll let you know that I just released within the last couple hours ACC all-time program rankings. So I left the link here in the community section of the FSU channel. The video's over on the main channel. We released the Pac-12 on Monday. Why the Pac-12? It's no longer exists. Well, that's kind of a good time to wrap it all up and say this is what the Pac-12 looked like. And we don't spitball it. We're talking all-time winning percentage, talking college football playoff era winning percentage, 21st century since 1970. We're talking NFL draft picks, #1 draft selections, All-America selections, all the major awards, not just the Heisman, both sides of the football. We're looking at major bowl wins, total bowl wins, conference championships. And how about this, Florida State fans? Not just conference championships, but conference championship percentage, meaning Florida State in the ACC for 32 years with 16 championships. That's by far the best conference championship percentage. That's how they should be counted.
Yeah,
and,
I imagine it's not rather close there.
So check that out, everyone. See if you think I got it right. We got a point system and the whole deal. So we put a lot of work into that. So check it out.
I have no doubts it will be amazing. There have been some Vegas lines starting to come out here little by little as we get closer and closer to fall. I saw the other day Florida State, I think, is edged in front of Clemson at plus 275 to win the ACC this year. Not too bad. I think we are plus 2,500 to win the national title, tied with 3 or 4 other teams somewhere around like 10th place. I think it's actually tied for 9th. Or something like that, but pretty cool stuff. We're some of these lists that come out, Florida State's being a little slept on, but as far as Vegas, they're still recognizing that Florida State is the team to beat in the ACC. DraftKings released, I think, 6 lines. It's not the full schedule, but I think it's the 6, toughest games. And Notre Dame was the only team favored to beat Florida State there by 3.5 points, but that's at Notre Dame. So basically a pick 'em, but favored in all our games. You could pretty much say that because they provided lines, I believe, for Clemson, Notre Dame, and Miami. So Florida State pretty safe to be favored in all their games outside of that Notre Dame game. In Indiana, is it?
South Bend, Indiana. Yes, sir. George, appreciate you being here. James, wherever you wandered off to, we appreciate you. George, the Renegade Report, that's a must. Everybody that's watching right now should be subscribed to the Renegade Report. That's all there is to it. So get on over there, the Renegade Report. It's so easy to find. I didn't get a chance to drop the link in the chat, but just put in Renegade Report in your YouTube search. It's going to show up immediately. Track everything that George has going on over at the Renegade Report. I've got the Miami show. We're getting revved up here in about 5 to 10 minutes with Cam Underwood, State of the U. So you can just follow me on over there. When's the next live show, George?
We are live Friday, sometime around 7 Eastern. We will be live Fridays, nice. Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays nowadays at the Renegade Report. It's that simple.
George, thanks for making this work. We appreciate it. You're here for us every Wednesday. So thank you so much for that. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great show on Friday.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mark. And shout out to Jen. Thanks for joining us. My beautiful co-host, always helping out as well. And go Noles, baby.